All right, today we're going to give you some technical analysis, of course, with Bitcoin and Ethereum starting to shake up in the charts. We thought, well, let's do a little bit of a deep dive on all these. I think you guys will like this one. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. Joining me today is Army Piper, who is one of the analysts with Chart Prime, and they asked us to basically do an analysis on their tool. We use a lot of tools here on the show, but I want to welcome in Rick from Chart Prime. Great to have you.
Great. Thanks for having me, Paul. I appreciate it. Glad to
Okay,
be
so
here.
when we had a chance to look, as you guys know that are following our channel, we use a lot of different tools. Evan Aldo, who's on our channel quite a bit, uses Market Cipher. We've used everything from Lux Algo, various types. You guys understand that. Chart Prime was one that we had not explored, and when I had a chance to talk with the team over there, I started to get intrigued with some of the indices and tool sets that they were using for basically charting crypto, and of course other things too. But intrigued with it, so we said, hey, let's get them on. Let's do a little bit of analysis, see the tool in action, and kind of get to it. So that was the reason for the episode today. I want to jump over, Rick, to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, of course, has started to slip right under 24K. The Dixie, of course, breaks 105 for the second time this year. So we're starting to see some interesting things that have not played out in the last couple of weeks, because we have seen 25K hit 3 times. When you look at Bitcoin right now, based on the TA side, what does the Chart Prime tool show us that we can kind of look at in terms of the overall analysis?
So I've got a couple of things that are showing up here on the charts right now for Bitcoin, Paul. First off, Chart Prime's indicators that they have auto printing for trend lines and patterns, and then a lot of indicators that within our indicators that we offer. So the idea is that we can look at these charts and pull up different perspectives on what asset we're looking at through confluence of multi assets, right? Multi
Right.
indicators. So one that I have on right now is the order blocks. I have on the multi time frame graded support resistance indicators here, which is looking at the daily and the 4 hour, but I'm on a 12-hour chart, so I can literally see visually, because it's really easy to go here and go, oh, yep, there's a support line right here, right? But we broke it now. But to be able to throw the daily on here with the 4 hour at the same time and see all of these multi time frames is a super powerful tool for
Right.
looking for where we could see support and resistance. For example, right now, just in this last few minutes, we broke a number 3, because these are graded from 1 being the strongest, and you can go all the way up to 10, but I've got the top 3 on right now. This was our weakest of the top 3 daily support resistances, and we just broke that one. So now I'm watching for this auto printed channel that we have here, which goes all the way back to 21 November of last year. And this has been a rising channel that we've been in. We broke down a little bit here for a brief period of time, a couple of months there. But then we came back in, and that was our top line there of the channel, our bottom there. And so I'm looking at that now to be our support coming in somewhere around 22,200 right now.
Okay.
However, we do have an order block here. And when we have these institutional order blocks like this, it is very possible that we're going to come back down to wick into this order block and probably grab some of this liquidity that we have sitting over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing right now on Bitcoin. We do have our oscillator here, and it did give us our bearish divergence, this little red line right here. And we did get this momentum dot pulling back into the cloud. Uh, Now that we've broken the zero line, I am pretty sure that we're going to be coming down to that order block range, probably to as low as 21,000, hitting our dynamic reactor here, which is essentially a VWAP and a moving average, proprietary coding on it, but it works very well when we're below it or above it. For example, when we were below it here, you can see how cleanly it bounced off of it as rejection.
Yeah.
So
Right. So in looking at, because I like the multi indicators when it comes to the daily versus the 4 hour, those kind of things do help, because a lot of times you're kind of thumbing in between charts. And interestingly enough, I mean,
absolutely.
that kind of goes a little bit in line with what our sentiment data has been pushing. And we showed this yesterday, but um, what we saw with Bitcoin is just this dip right here on the 21st of February, starting to trend down along with the overall market, which was also trending. The one, though, that really is interesting, we'll talk about ETH in a minute, was the fall off on ETH. And I think we may be seeing that play out in the charts as we get into it. I want to flip over to this tweet from Jeff Ross. Jeff has been on our show a couple of times, Vailshire Capitals. His statement here, market participants almost done worrying about, once again, sticky high inflation as they've been throughout the month of Feb. Once the narrative shifts, the Fed pause rally will recommence for an intermediate period of time. So what his position, and just for some relevance here, in most cases when he's been on our show before, he's very bearish. He's an asset manager, but also an analyst. And for him to flip to a bullish signal was a bit of a surprise over this last month. Good enough, because he was right. Bitcoin clips 25K 3 times. Now his perception is that we may see a little bit of a wobble here, but the market is most likely going to take a positive direction. If you were looking at Chart Prime and utilizing tools like that, especially in the oscillators, and you go out over a longer time frame, are there any indicators that Chart Prime spits out that would enable you to take a look at that kind of scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull this back up here for you. One of the things that I actually saw here, and this is from our candlestick patterns here on Bitcoin, or on our Chart Prime indicator. It's from the Market Oracle. But one of the things that we have in here is called Morning Star and the Evening Star. I'm sure you're familiar with it. But we actually had a print of the Morning Star back in November also. And that was pretty much our low right there. Very powerful candlestick indicators, and we get a bunch of them that we can do here. But I love the Morning Star and the Evening Star just because on higher time frames, they do really pull off tops and bottom peaks with the Morning Star versus the Evening Star. But you can see, I mean, we have dojis in here. We have falling three method, all of the historical, traditional candlestick patterns. But I really like to use these morning and evening stars on the higher time frames. And you can see that we did get a morning star, like I said, back there in that date, which was pretty much the bottom of Bitcoin's drop there. So we saw that. Another thing that we also saw, and this was on, I want to say the daily on Bitcoin, we had, yes, back here, we hit our uptrend arrow back here at the bottom. We did just get another one here, but it also called this bottom. So you can see here, we had an uptrend arrow on the oscillator, which called for this. And then we had another one here, which actually called our bottom here, which is in line with where that morning star is. I believe that morning star comes in here on the 12-hour. But yeah, we definitely got some great indicators on the higher time frames for when this comes in. So overall, I'm still quite bullish on Bitcoin when I look at these higher time frames on Chart Prime's indicators. Yeah. So
okay, so and that is something I think that we've continued to see in the market. The question is, obviously, with the Fed, all that playing out into it from the macro aspect, that's usually typically where we see some pressures of not only Bitcoin but also Ethereum starting to take a little bit of a hit. But the one variant that even Jeff and I have talked about before is the market liquidity. Liquidity is starting to flow back into the market, which causes obviously these kinds of spikes within it as a whole. When you take a look at Ethereum, now big news yesterday with Coinbase, they had a layer 2, could expand the scaling aspect of where Ethereum is going. And we're seeing more and more. If you looked at Coinbase's, just their track in terms of transactions on Base, already started to flip above what we've seen with some of the other platforms that have been growing over just a very short period of time, especially in these kind of layer 2 concepts. With Ethereum right now, and you take a look at where Ethereum is today, I think it's hovering around 16. What is your chart showing for Ethereum in the short term?
So looking at the charts here on the short term for Ethereum, I'm on a 12-hour again, but you can see that we had a lot of rejection up here going on for a couple of weeks. And this is going to be on our 4-hour major. You see that's the number 1. That's why it's the dashed line there. We had a rejection on this for a long time on our major resistance line on the 4-hour chart here. I was expecting that we were going to get up to our number 2 daily here, which is coming in at $1,800 approximately. because there is an order block up here too. And so when you look at that liquidity, that's where the money movers want to get it to, right? They want that liquidity up there. So I guess this was enough of a liquidity grab for them in this order block here, which is also aligning right here perfectly with the 4-hour resistance. But long term, or short term, I should say, I do believe that this rising wedge that we've been in going back to August, I believe. No, this is November for this 12-hour. Going back to November, we're also in a rising wedge here on Ethereum too. Could we come back down here like we did here and do this little fake out? Absolutely. But I'm looking at about 1,500 being solid support on this dynamic reactor here. You notice that there's not a lot of other support until we get down to the $1,300, $1,300, $1,350 range on the 4 hours there, being the number 2 and number 3. So pretty strong support down there on the multi-time frame, greatest support resistance. But we've got to get a bounce off of this trend line or this dynamic reactor here to bring us back up, break this long time resistance here on the 4-hour major resistance here, and get back up to this order block. I think if we can do that, ultimately we're going to find support up here at this daily. But for the short term, I do see that we do have that $1,500 range here for the low that we could come down and retest these supports in the dynamic reactor here. But ultimately, something that does worry me a little bit is that this rising wedge is a bearish pattern, and it's very possible that we could break out of this, get a retest on it, probably bouncing off of this dynamic reactor for that retest, giving it all that momentum there from the liquidity where people get bullish, right? And then they grab all that liquidity, they trap all those traders, and then down we go, down to this 1,300 range. So I am looking at that scenario. Short term, I am bullish. I do believe we're going to find the support here, but if we don't, this is where I will be looking at, is that 1,300 to 1,350 for that ultimate support in the short-term time frame.
Yeah, this was the chart that kind of took us by surprise yesterday when we looked at our sentiment data. Was an immediate correction. It had a little bit of clip off of the high on the 21st, and then just literally kind of fell in. The only difference is that we have 2 layers of sentiment. One layer, kind of our secondary layer, which is the red line called amplification. It seems to be holding right around the overall market sentiment, but the top line, which is kind of general sentiment, is the one that started to slip. So it is aligning with what's happening with ETH right now on this fall that you're seeing. So I'm kind of in agreement with you. We have not seen that kind of drop in such a short period of time with Ethereum. So it could be an indicator, back to your saying, is that we could see a little bit of a bearish trend starting to develop here with Ethereum. Interesting, though, with all of the things that are happening with Coinbase, obviously launching with Base, which lives on Optimism, which is a mainnet of ETH, and we saw all of those kind of fly. Speaking of Optimism, let's jump over to Optimism. I want to take a look at your charts on how you look at some of these, these lower liquidity tokens and how it performs in an ability to be able to look at those kinds of trends.
Okay. Yeah, let's jump over here and take a look. Look at, again, that's a 12-hour chart here. I'm looking at OP right now, currently coming in at about $3. We do have a major support here on a 4-hour time frame right here, coming in at about 215. But again, I believe that if we're going to come this low, we're probably going to wick down and test our dynamic reactor. If we go back here historically, you can see that once it came in, once it came above here and started into this trend, it almost came back for a perfect retest on here before it came up. So when in the bear market, we did have kind of some sideways action here, which is, it's a given. It's what happens. We range for a while, right? It's the whole collection period. But you can see how strong the 4-hour support line here played out. So
right,
if we come down here, I do see, probably 217 if it pulls back, but you also have to take into, fundamentals. At the end of the day, you can't negotiate with the charts, right? At the end of the day, the fundamentals of OP, if it's really bullish, it may not come back down to that point. If I go into here on our market oracle, I can actually throw on some trend lines and we'll see if there's auto printing some trend lines. Yeah, we got a perfect trend line right there that printed off, that we could probably come down to and test and still keep in that form of that structure of higher lows. So
where it hits the 4
that's
hour.
coming in at about 250. So yep.
So a couple of things when looking at chart prime, I want to CryptoPit. Let's go back to his full screen. Okay, actually, let's go back to the charts full screen. I want to look at something, and if you can break this out for our viewers. So, Rick, when you see these bands, and you've got, like, for instance, that green, what I think is an oscillator band there, and then you've got a where it flows into the red
This one here
bands.
is dynamic reactor.
Yes. Okay. How do
Oh,
those
down here.
apply? Exactly. Yeah. How do those apply?
Okay, the
I mean, because
oscillator.
I kind of compare these similar to, because I always try to compare this to what we've seen with Market Cipher. Explain what those are and how they affect at least the ability to read some of these indicators.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we had some fantastic influence here. The big thing about Chart Prime is we don't just offer buy sell indicators. You notice, like, even when I pulled up the Market Oracle and we threw on trend lines here, there are multiple indicators within our 4 indicators, and we teach our users on our Discord to not just take these indicators and look at what you're trying to find on just a few of them. Develop a strategy that gives you confluence, right? And so when I look at the oscillator here, you can see this. These are two hidden bullish divergences here, right? And they print it off here. That's what that yellow line is on the oscillator. But what I really look for on the oscillator is when we're pulling back into a cloud, that we get that ribbon twist. And you see it was red here, and then it turned this purplish color after the ribbon twist, and then it turned green, right, as momentum went up. And it started to widen, which tells me that we're getting ready to have good run-up growth, right? So what I would look at here is the confluence of, okay, we got a trend line here. We bounced on that. We have support on our May 4-hour daily, a 4-hour support there. Major support there in the 4-hour. Let me get that out there. And then we got the ribbon twist here. So this gives me great confluence that we had an uptrend going here. And you can see, I mean, that run gave us a good 39.5% when we look at the chart there off of this point that I have circled here. So when I look at this ribbon, another thing too, like, this one wouldn't have been the most ideal for me because I really love to see us get down below this dashed line. That is our bullish zone. Typically, when we get the oscillator to come down to that point, it gives us a really good bounce like you saw here. And other times back in here, we still came down just a little to grab that liquidity, which is a thing. We know that happens, right? That's why we wait for retests and not just go off of a single indicator. But this told me that we were ready for a good run up, and you can see that was a really massive run up. Even if we take it from this point up to there, 110% move in the price action. So when I see it down in that bullish zone there, just like when I see it up here in the bearish zone, we were up here in this bearish zone here. We got the overbought blocks, we got the downtrend arrow, and then we got that, what I told you about, that ribbon twist with the momentum dot, and then bam, there down we go. So I look for a lot of those things on the oscillator to add that confluence of direction for price action, for momentum, the strength and volume that it's going to move up there on. And so once we get those retests like this, or we get a nice pullback on something, then we'll go into it. Another thing that I like to use a lot for my strategy, my personal strategy, is called predictive ranges here. And when this prints, it goes into a time frame of when it broke the previous. So if I take this and turn off auto here we go. You can see this range right here, and I'm going to grab that so I can show you. This range right here is framed by these two purple lines on the top and bottom. So that is the predictive range. But what it tells you is that these two gold lines here, with the blue line being the delta of this entire range, when it printed that, most of the time our price action occurs between the two gold bands, right? And you can see it played out perfectly on the delta and there, back and forth for highs and low, for longs and shorts there, right? But when we came into this range here, it did one of these things that makes me a little worrisome, and that is it went into the lower setting of the range, right? So instead of being up here in between the two gold ranges, it actually shifted down to below, where the bottom range is now the top, and the bottom of the breakout range of that entire period is now the bottom, right? So it's a little shift down, and it happens sometimes that it just falls this way, but it still stays within those two bands. You just have to, visually move down with it. So what I see right now is that we are at the trend going all the way back to February 3rd here of our top, right? So when I use these and I tie this in, so when I look here, like we got this bounce here, well, there's that bounce on our predictive range also. So
Right.
this is telling me that we have more upside. But like I was saying, there's multiple ways that you can use our indicators, and it's not about using our indicators to tell you when to buy or sell. Our entire premise of Chart Prime is to offer you multiple indicators within indicators so that you can develop a strategy that works for you, because everyone has a different trade style. One thing that never
Sure.
changes is that a single indicator telling you to do this or that needs confluence, and you can choose from different ones. Like I could, like I said, the trend line and the multi time frame support here, or the predictive ranges hitting that bottom range there, all laid out weeks prior. So it works really well on low cap tokens. It works really well on the blue chips. It works fantastic on futures and stocks. I have a lot of people in our community that trade their futures, and they get their accounts funded within a few weeks of taking the classes and
Interesting.
getting the indicators. So it
Very
works
cool.
pretty much everywhere.
All right, well, let's go through three more tokens real quickly, though. I want to jump into Solana, and then oh, actually, we'll flip over to Solana, and then we'll look at Matic and Stack. So Solana NFT ecosystem now declines a little bit. It's struggling somewhat. I think we're starting to see a lot more competitiveness in the NFT space. Solana has been one of the icons of NFTs over a period of time. How does that show up in the charts for you in terms of trading volume and those kind of things?
So Solana shows up beautifully here. I had told you about the evening star, and there it is with our possible
Yep.
reversal down indicator, right? Um, Coming down here, we also had the downtrend arrow. We had the overbought. There's that that twist in the ribbon that I was talking about coming out of the bearish zone, right? And we were in this rising wedge here, which is a
Yeah.
bearish pattern. We are currently right now on the 12-hour candle breaking this. I would actually be looking for a retest on this at around 23.64, 23.75. And that's where I would be looking for an entry. You can also see that all of our tops here was on a major 4-hour resistance line from our multi-time frame. We are coming up on the number 3. It's not as strong as the number 1 or the number 2 down here. So I will be watching for it to get some play here. If it does come down and breaks this and hits a retest here, it would even be another good spot to add to that position. But I see some downside coming to Solana when I can look at this chart right now, just
Yeah.
because of the confluence here. Like I said, evening star reversal down off of a major resistance line, coming out of a bearish pattern, breaking out of it right now, all after we had this on our oscillator. So, fantastic call here. Even on things like this hidden bearish divergence here, we still had a little bit of a downplay on this, but we had support. That's why we always wait for that retest. So
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, just slight movements down. The big deal with Solana that still draws attention, at least for me, is the fact that it's underperforming our overall market, which is a concern. When you look at Matic, okay, so Polygon had some pretty big issues here. They cut headcount by 20%. They're also holding 2 billion in treasury, so you kind of wonder what's up there. I don't know if this is, I mean, sometimes these are good moves, for some of these projects to kind of get lean and mean in these, these bear markets. But also, in some cases, there are projects that they've completed by a certain period of time, so there's less need for developers, et cetera. Obviously, the support personnel. So that may not have a big factor, but at the same time, it has. I don't know if this has had a big issue with the overall sentiment, but Polygon has, of course, taken a little bit of a downtrend here. What does Chart Prime show us on Polygon?
well, first, I want to show you a little something that happened back here, looking at, let's see here, January 11th time period. We were in this wedge, auto printed chart pattern here, and we got a breakout. You can see the red X there. It actually gave a target on this up to 1.41, and that is pretty much where we came to on there. So I wanted to
Right.
show that first because that's pretty impressive when it gives you a breakout and it goes, hey, here's your target, and you hit it over here months later. So that was pretty good. Um, But currently, what we're looking at right now is we had our reversal down here again with the overbought. There's the ribbon twist again out of that bearish zone. And it told us back here on 18 February that we were looking at downside. However, when I look at where we currently are at, we are coming into a major trend line here. If it breaks this trend line, going all the way back into the December time period here, then
Mm-hmm.
that would be where I'd be starting to have some concern about Matic's price right now. I think ultimately Matic's got a great community. They have fantastic marketing. And this is probably some pullback on the bad news that we've had recently on it, but being compounded with the idea that with the fact that Bitcoin's on a downtrend right now. I
Yeah.
mean, Matic's down 6% versus Bitcoin's 3%, obviously, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is a layer 2 alt. So, but yeah, I would say that if we do break this trend line here coming in currently at about 125, 1.25, that we might be coming down to grab the liquidity from this order block, maybe a little bit below, just to grab the liquidity from those wicks on stop losses. We do
Interesting.
have a predictive range coming in at 1.08. Which for me personally protects my hodl bag because I bought it much lower than that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think 1.08 probably going to find the support. If not, we do have the MTF down here showing us some significant major support lines on the MTF for the 4 hours. So,
Yeah,
but
and if you
yeah,
look at
great call
if
on
you
the
look,
patterns here. So
for sure, if you look at sentiment, it was very much in line with what you guys called on I think it was 17th or the 18th. This started peaking right here on the 17th. We started to see that downtrend. The one thing that does, I think, would really indicate some potential downside is that amplification, which is our stronger sentiment band, is dropping faster now, and it's starting to separate away as opposed to kind of where Polygon has been very symmetric in terms of overall sentiment. And when we look at sentiment, it's how people perceive it, what they're talking about, whether they're going to trade it, hold it, those kind of things. But it usually is fairly accurate on that. Wrapping up, I want to get into stacks quickly. Stacks, of course, if you guys are not aware, we've done a bunch of videos on this. This is a Bitcoin layer for smart contracts, so it enables smart contracts and decentralized apps to basically build within Bitcoin. So settling transactions on Bitcoin and doing a lot of other stuff as well. So you can kind of see a little bit here on their video, but the interesting thing is Stacks has kind of come out. It's been around for quite some time, and we've already seen a lot of this. But the difference is that timing seems to be perfect right now with ordinals, obviously NFTs, and what could be the alpha, side of this when it comes to Bitcoin, maybe offering up some very unique use cases for Bitcoin. So as far as Stacks goes, what are you looking at on Stacks? Because we've traded in and out this week, done tremendous. We've also exited our position when it started to take a little bit of a drop. What does Chart Prime show us?
So I'm going to go ahead and add a few more lines on here because when we have that high volatility, obviously you want to add more range. So I'm going to go ahead and move our support resistance. We can, like I said, we can have these all the way up to 10 lines. So I'm adding some in here just to get some more perspective of what we have. Like right now, we have a minor. It's a number 4 out of 5 support range coming in at about 65 cents on Stacks right now. You can see we were running overbought for this entire period here, which tells me that when it runs overbought that long, there's a lot. The sentiment's bullish. Again, you can't negotiate with the charts, right? Hey, it's saying overbought. It's got to be coming down, right? But no, the bulls are in charge, and sometimes you just got to take that as what it is. We do have an order block coming up here, currently at about 105 in that range there. So it could get a bounce off of this minor 4 hour support line here coming in at 65 cents and make its way back up there. But when it gets into these modes here, you really have to just go and start taking a look at some other things. And that's why I love Chart Prime's versatility. If I throw on predictive ranges here, you can see that we've been in a range for a long time in here. Let me also turn off the order blocks just to make this a bit cleaner for you. Here we go. So you can see that we came in here, and where we got pretty much almost a rejection is going to be our upper resistance band. This red band, one of the predictive ranges, I call it the upper resistance band. The green down here, I call it the lower support band. And then obviously, like I said, the trade pocket there. if I move this up here a little bit and show you what we had going on there, it was really this lower support band that was giving us all the rejection. And once we got above that and then gave a nice retest on the dynamic reactor there, that was all upside. So I knew when it hit the support band down here and it was playing off of that range that it was very volatile growth because it started off so low in the trade in the predictive ranges, right?
Yeah.
So when we came through like here, like no stop really. I mean, it wicked up above it and then launched straight into the delta. Got a lot of support off of the delta line in here. Got a little bit of play and rejection on this upper trade band. So I figured that the resistance was going to come from the upper resistance line here.
Interesting.
When it gets into these moves like this, what you have to do is just throw in your predictive ranges, and you've got to look at other, fundamentals always matter, right? Stacks had a lot of bullishness behind it because of Bitcoin. So even on the wedge here, I mean, you can see that even Chart Prime said, hey, we got a wedge breakout here on this chart pattern. Here's your target, right? we greatly even surpassed the target that it projected on that breakout for that chart pattern. So it's still looking bullish. I think that the sentiment on it, this coming down today like this is literally just because we had PCE data that came out this morning that wasn't the best, everything's kind of in a pullback right now, but overall, I would say that the markets are holding up much better than the futures markets today. So,
Yeah. Well, that's true. One thing about stacks, just to be aware for those of you following the CPI, we just listed that into our own sentiment tracker, and the problem that we have seen so far with stacks is there's a lot of bot traffic. So we're trying to glean that out because within the sentiment content, you pick up all of this bot traffic. Typically, it's in when a token first lists on our index. So we're in the process of really trying to understand that because it's a very volatile scenario playing out with stacks right now, which is shown out on the charts as well. Listen, if you guys want to get a lot more deep into Chart Prime, you can utilize their Discord. I've had a chance to go through kind of a little bit of a learning tool with Rick and his team, and it's interesting because there's a lot of tools within it that I would not have thought to use and indicate within TradingView. So I've been somewhat impressed with it, at least in the beginning. So I think now is a great time if you guys are interested. We'll drop a link down below so you can not only take part in it, but also there's a big education process to this. Their Discord, all that kind of stuff that they offer out there for sure.
absolutely. Yeah. Way more than indicator, algorithmic indicator software. Way more. We offer live classes with an actual trainer that teaches you how to use the settings, what all the different indicators do, how to develop a strategy. They help you with that. So the whole education piece. We also do crypto trade signals in there that are running like 90% accuracy rate. Great traders that we have in there, master traders. And then, the community itself. I mean, that's at the end of the day, traders want to be someplace that's not toxic, where they get support, where they get, we have mentors in there that we call the Chart Prime Army. They're mentors and there's subscribers and members that have just been helpful with the community as a whole. So great community, way more than an indicator, but it's a fantastic indicator. So
yeah, for sure. Hey, Rick, it's been great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for stopping in. We appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you, Paul. I appreciate you having me.
You bet. All right, so you guys, if you're not in our Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in. We have our Substack, which is where we drop a lot of additional content. We have a podcast over there that Kyle Wilson and myself do. We do everything from NFTs, Web3, but also traditional token analysis. Typically, we try to do those 2 or 3 times a week, so there's a lot of additional content that's over there. Plus, you'll get CPI drops occasionally if you're jumping into the Diamond Circle Plus program. So join that. It's very easy. We'll leave a link down below. If you guys want to catch me, it's out there on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.